SWEGTA!
Hey everybody, sleep-deprived SWEGTA here. Hopefully you'll bear with me throughout this video, and you'll excuse my very evidently tired visage. The last video that I put out took a lot out of me, energy-wise. I ended up staying up late a couple days in a row to finish that video on time. So for this video right here, I'm just gonna freestyle and talk about stuff that I'm glad Rockstar removed from Bully before the game got released. Which is pretty interesting, because normally when it comes to unused content, it's the other way around. It's like, man, why did they cut this? They should have kept that in the game, would have made it more interesting. But when it comes to the examples that I will be providing throughout this video, I'm glad these are not in the game, and I'll be explaining why as we go along. So kicking things off with Jimmy's original design and concept. Initially, Rockstar wanted Bully to be a way edgier game than it ended up being, and one of those original concepts was to have Jimmy be this horrible person who picked on other people, and that was basically the gist of it. You were the bad guy. I've thought about this for a while, and I think it's possible that at some point in the story, he would have realized that this is not the way to go about things, and maybe he would have come to his senses and eventually developed into a kinder, more compassionate human being. But the way they designed Jimmy did not look good at all, in my opinion. The perpetual frown, mean-mugging look on his face. To me, it would have made cutscenes really awkward, just to have, like, the protagonist constantly make this kind of, like, meh face. I much prefer the way he looks in the final game, and maybe this is a controversial opinion. I know some people prefer the way he looks in the PS2 version as opposed to Scholarship Edition, but I like the way he looks in Scholarship Edition. It looks way more grounded. For some reason, it became a little bit of a meme in my community that Jimmy looks like, what was it, a middle-aged man who just took a bite out of a lemon. But again, as far as the original concept goes, you were supposed to be the bully, which I think would have heavily undermined the anti-bullying message of the game. It also would have just made it more difficult for most players, myself included, to relate to this character, because for a long time I've heard from many people in my audience that, yeah, you know, some of you guys used to get picked on, some of you guys used to get bullied, and this game was a way of escaping that. Sure, you have the ability to pick on kids in the game and bully them, but it's nothing that's ever encouraged or rewarded in the slightest. Now that's not to say that I wouldn't enjoy playing a beta version of this game to experience that and see what the difference would have been like. Obviously, if I had the opportunity to play that version of the game, I would do it in a heartbeat. But as far as the outcome of the game's development goes, I think they made a really good choice in completely changing the way Jimmy's face looks along with his personality. I also think it would have been difficult to pair him with Gary and Pete, because Gary is supposed to be the sociopath in the group. He's supposed to be the super mean one. And Pete has always been the more sensitive one, whereas, in my opinion, Jimmy was always somewhere in the middle. As Crabblesnitch himself puts it at the end of the game, well, spoiler I guess, but I mean, if you're watching this video, you're probably well aware of Bully's storyline at this point. But as Crabblesnitch himself says at the end of the game, yeah, Jimmy's rough around the edges, but he's still a diamond. And as far as the evolution of Jimmy Hopkins throughout the storyline goes, he does get to a point where ego overtakes him, where he becomes self-obsessed and proclaims himself as king of the school. I mean, even Pete himself, after they've taken over the school, reminds Jimmy that, hey, you know, you shouldn't let this get to your head. You should stay in reality. And it's not until after Jimmy has lost the respect of pretty much everybody, excluding Pete and Russell, that he comes to his senses and realizes that, hey, you know, yeah, that was fun in games, but at the end of the day, the respect people give me is hollow and temporary. Having Jimmy begin his journey as this horrible person and then develop some sense of right and wrong would have felt far less impactful in my opinion. So the second thing that I'm glad Rockstar removed from this game is something that I don't really dare show fully in this video. Those of you who have seen my video entitled Character Models Rockstar Had to Remove from Bully will know what I'm talking about. I was actually the person who discovered this back in the day, and basically what happened is that I went through the end credits of the game and I looked up every single developer name that I could find. I was essentially looking for developer portfolios, design documents, anything that I could come across that would provide us with some exclusive insight into the game's development that people had not seen before. And so I came across Jared Fry's website, and on this website I found a bunch of these pre-release versions of various characters in the game, including all of the female characters you can kiss, and they had these character model variants of them being in underwear. And the first time I saw this, I remember thinking, like, am I having a fever dream? This feels surreal to me. But no. No. At one point in development, Rockstar intended for this to be in the game, and I can't for the life of me imagine why. Nor can I picture a context wherein this would be appropriate for a game like Bully. And it is possible that Rockstar, at least for a brief moment of time, entertained the idea of maybe reigniting the hot coffee controversy for publicity's sake by including these character models in the game. This is really the only reason that I can imagine them even attempting this in the first place, and even that, I don't know if that would be a sensible reason, even for a company like Rockstar. It's bizarre, and if you want to call me overly sensitive for being against them including this in the game, then guilty as charged. I don't think it would have been a good idea. I've seen some people speculate that these character models would have been used in the girls' dorm late at night, like if you snuck in you would see them dressed like this, but even that, like why would you have that be in the game? Especially considering that they were aiming for a T rating. But even if they were gonna go for like an 18+ rating, this would have not been something the ESRB would have given their stamp of approval. I don't even know if Take-Two Interactive would have been cool with them including this. One thing that I did attempt was to get some information out of Jared Fry himself, since he did do some of these character designs. Alas, because of NDAs and yada yada video game development politics, he can't really get into that. So if there's somebody out there who's like, ooh, I'm gonna look into this, I'm gonna see what Jared Fry has to say, he's not gonna tell you anything. I don't think he legally could. Up next, we have something that I haven't covered in a video yet, and this is something that I've always had in the back of my mind for a video just like this. It's Big Bertha and Leroy from the character design phase of the game's development. Do I need to explain this one? I mean, I feel like just by doing that, I would be jeopardizing this video. I know Rockstar Games enjoys putting caricatures in their video games, but this is a little bit much, in my opinion. Kind of feels like something you would find on an image board. Again, if you want to call me too sensitive for that, sure, I guess. I mean, to each their own. Even setting that aside, I think tonally it would have totally clashed with the setting of the game. Based on the fact that both of these characters are contained within one concept art, I would imagine that Big Bertha would be the mom and Leroy the kid. But yeah, that's pretty much the only description that I could give of this that would not put this video in some kind of danger with YouTube, so yay. Up next, we have Jimmy's death scenes. Those of you who've seen my video called The Dark Side of Bully You Never Saw will be familiar with what I'm talking about, but in case you have no idea what this is, originally there were supposed to be at least a couple ways in which Jimmy could perish. So the first one was by drowning. I would assume this would happen if you ran out of stamina while swimming, or if you passed out because of a lack of sleep while in water. Animations of this still exist in the game. So this idea was not just a concept that somebody brainstormed. There had to be a point in development where somebody proposed this idea, other people agreed to it, and then they went ahead and animated it, and then said, I don't know, let's not do that. Now the second way in which Jimmy could have died would have been by drowning again, but this time in corrosive acid. Because why not? Basically, during the boss fight with Edgar Munsen at the chem plant, if you got knocked out or failed in some possible other way, I'm not quite sure what the plan there was, Jimmy would have fallen into a vat of acid and drowned in it, while Edgar taunted him and made comments like, oh, you're nothing like a chemical peel for your skin, huh, Jimmy? And just like the other example that I gave, leftovers of this still exist in the game files, including coordinates and unused voice lines by Edgar. It's a pretty nonsensical thing to put in the game. I mean, even given the game's original much darker and vicious tone, I think this would have been a tad wee bit too much for even that. You know, when you failed the Russell boss fight, what happens? Oh, there's a cutscene that plays where Russell's like, yeah, I'm king now, But imagine if they had a cutscene where Jimmy's just dead on the floor of the hole, and the game just tells you, oh yeah, Russell beat you to death game over. I think that would have been just about as illogical as this Edgar Munsen fight death scene. But I will say this, I enjoy the fact that leftovers of this are still in the game files, because for me, it's just awesome looking into this stuff. So even though I'm not a fan of this idea, I still enjoy talking about it and exploring it as much as possible. Now this final thing that I'm going to bring up is pretty vanilla compared to anything else that I've brought up in this video, but it's limited stamina. Just like half of the stuff we've talked about, leftovers of this exist in the game file still. Now the reason I oppose this being in the game is because you don't really have many options in terms of vehicle transportation. And if there had to be some type of stamina system, then surely that would have also applied to riding bicycles. With games like Grand Theft Auto, you have the privilege of being able to use a lot of types of motorized vehicles. In Bully, you have a couple. You have the moped and the go-kart. Imagine this, you're running down the hallways at maximum speed, prefects hightailing after you, but then all of a sudden, oops, no stamina, you're screwed. I do think one thing they should have done in the game is give the non-playable characters more stamina, because for the most part, it only takes about, like, what, 10 seconds of sprinting before the people chasing after you are out of breath and they just give up on chasing you. A better balance, in my opinion, would have been to remove the limited stamina system and give NPCs a little bit more time to chase after you before they run out of breath. But yeah, speaking of being tired, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Again, it's a bit of a minimal effort kind of thing. I'm trying to keep my upload schedule consistent, and like I said, I am sleep deprived because of the previous video that I did. But if you enjoyed this and you want me to make more videos like this where I just speak my mind from the top of the dome, let me know in the comments below. And by the way, give this video a like. You know, I actually have an interesting idea for a follow-up video to this. For that video, I'm thinking that you guys can let me know in the comments below what you would have liked to see made the final cut of the game, and then throughout the video I'll give my opinions on your comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. I'm gonna drink some more caffeine. You folks, as always, stay classy. Peace. I want to give a thank you to the following people for supporting my channel via the membership feature: Ben Struble, Jake Johnson, Golden Stripes, The Synth Scream Collective, Yippee, and Kabam Iyoita. Thank you all for your support. If I mispronounced any name, let me know. But again, thank you. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Peace out.